Welcome, seekers of truth and lovers of nuanced storytelling, to a chapter that will reshape the way we read the private storms behind famous smiles. This is Turkish Spotlight Secrets, your refuge for depth, context, and the kind of narrative that refuses to flatten real lives into shallow headlines. In a glittering world that never stops buzzing, the hush surrounding Elçin Sengu and the sudden, disarming stillness of Barış Arduç have spoken louder than any rumor cycle. Audiences used to their warm humor, electric chemistry, and tireless work ethic felt a jolt when, almost overnight, the pair withdrew into a quiet that seemed to swallow the timeline itself. For days that became weeks, their feeds fell still, their usual sparkle at events vanished, and the vacuum was immediately filled with theories, some tender, some reckless. Was this burnout? A carefully planned reset? A storm, or the clearing after it? Before we trace the trajectory from that midnight call to a new ambition that could rewrite their careers, we invite you, with gratitude, to be part of this home we are building. Subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, tap the bell so our careful pulse always reaches you, and if you want to support the work that goes beyond soundbites and seeks the living heartbeat beneath celebrity, consider pressing that join button. Your membership keeps the lights on and the questions honest. Listen closely now, because the choice the couple made wasn't random, and it wasn't a whim. What we uncovered at Turkish Spotlight Secrets felt like a deliberate spiritual quarantine, a protective hush where two artists shielded what matters most. After years living under an unforgiving lens, every gesture interpreted, every silence annotated, every friendship turned into a storyline, Elçin and Barış did something radical for people so publicly loved, they stopped. They muted the notifications. They shrank their circle to family and a couple of confidants who knew them before the applause. Projects that would have been automatic yes were put on hold. Interviews, even the friendly ones, were declined. In production corridors, insiders whispered about a refusal that felt out of character for stars who normally carried press tours like a second skin. But behind the stillness, something was forming, a truth that needed the dark to grow. And then, as these things always seem to happen, the universe chose an hour when the city had dimmed and the mind had softened. In that carefully built night, the phone lit up. It wasn't a manager. It wasn't a sponsor. It was a voice from years ago, familiar, steady, full of echoes, a voice that had once shared sets, secrets, triumphs, and the unspoken pact of two people who understand that screen magic can only exist when real respect is present. The call stretched past what anyone expected. An hour, then more, the kind of conversation that makes you forget that time is passing because the truth has suddenly turned into oxygen. Those close enough to witness the aftermath describe Elçin sitting in the half-light, eyes wet with tears that weren't pain but relief, the body language of someone finally releasing a breath they didn't realize they were holding. And when she finally spoke, it wasn't to explain herself, it was to anchor herself. Sometimes life leaves you with your hands empty, and then one voice gives it all back, twice as full. That sentence, heard only by a handful, was the seed of everything that followed. We won't pretend to know every word exchanged in that hour of naked honesty. We do know what it set in motion. The recalibration began. A private meeting turned into a series of working sessions where the couple, who had once defined a genre with their spark, mapped out a different ambition. The question wasn't how to repeat what the audience already adored, it was how to honor who they had become. From there, whispers grew into a credible hum. The pair had aligned around a project not built on the comfort of familiar beats, but on darker, more complex terrain, an exploration of love and identity where charm would not be a mask but a mirror. Before we go deeper, allow us a brief pause. Turkish Spotlight Secrets family, do you believe one must step into silence to learn how to speak again? Have you ever received a call that rearranged the furniture of your life in a single minute? Share your story below. We remain a channel not only for stars, but for the human stories that connect us to them. And if you value this kind of careful attention, a like supports our independence, and the join button opens a door to our most intimate reporting. Let's pull back the curtain now on that whispered surprise. According to the strongest chatter from trusted industry corners, The Secret is an international production that refuses the easy path. Not a light romance, not even a conventional drama. This is something austere and demanding, a narrative that asks for scars instead of gloss. Elçin would step into the skin of a woman confronting a past she has run from, while Barış would become the quiet force torn between protecting what he loves and daring to let it face the fire. It is the burial of a brittle fantasy and the birth of a fuller, braver story. The set, we're told, won't be confined to Istanbul, it will carry them into unfamiliar cities, the kind where you only know yourself by the echoes you make on streets that don't recognize your face. They would have to rebuild their process from the ground up, learn to let go of the charm that once functioned as armor, and trust the flaw, the fracture, the silence. This, more than any press release could say, is their answer to years of being put into a pretty box with a predictable ribbon. We have changed, and our work must change too. Those close to both of them describe a calm defiance in private conversations. No speeches, no declarations, just a steady removal of anything that demanded they trade their peace for applause. If a meeting didn't align with what they were building, it was gracefully declined. Instead of chasing the rush of easy hits, they chased the steadier rhythm of something true. It's not a retreat from the public, it's a return to the self that existed before the spotlight needed constant feeding. There's a moment, we're told, that marked a turning point. In a candid conversation with her inner circle, Elçin laid out the heart of it without drama. I've spent years living inside choices designed by other people. It's time I live inside my own. That line hit Istanbul's gossip columns not as scandal but as a quiet alarm bell. It was independence spoken without bitterness, the simple logic of a woman who has learned that peace is expensive and worth every coin. Those who expected impulsiveness met something tougher, composure. Those who expected denial met something stronger, acceptance. The sound of a boundary settling into the ground and saying, here. Family, too, threaded through the healing. After the call that shook loose the knots and the first real plans for the project, Elçin sat down with her mother, a conversation that folded time the way only family can. There were tears, not from weakness but from recognition, the soft weeping of two women who love each other enough to tell the truth. Mom, I don't need to prove I'm strong anymore. I know I am. With that, a long season of defense turned into a season of presence. Those who saw her after say there was a new calm to her face, not the effervescence of a red carpet, but the warmth of someone who trusts the ground under her feet. Barış mirrored that quiet, choosing gestures over statements, showing up not with fireworks but with steadiness. If a partnership is a house, they were repairing the beams, not repainting the porch. And then, at last, the silence thinned. After weeks of hush, a single image appeared, spare, unadorned, free of the long captions that turn lives into essays. One word sat beneath it, onward. At Turkish Spotlight Secrets, we didn't read it as a teaser for a date or a contract announcement. It was a thesis. Fans, perceptive as they always are, understood. It wasn't the promise of a new season, it was the declaration of a new era. This wasn't the Elçin who clapped back at whispers or the Barış who let noise crowd out the room. It was a pair choosing to move, together, not because the crowd demanded it but because the next step made sense to their bones. Before we land this story, gratitude is due. Thank you for making Turkish Spotlight Secrets a home for careful craft. If you haven't taken that next step with us, our Members Corner is where we share the threads that can't live in the main feed. The small details that illuminate big choices. The join button funds the calls, the flights, the time it takes to sit in a question until an honest answer appears. Consider joining, we carry that responsibility seriously because you place it in our hands. So where does this leave us as a new year stretches open? With a certainty we do not claim lightly, we are no longer simply watching actors who bring other people's words to life, we are watching two artists choosing to write their own map. The outlines of the past, the glitter, the glare, the obligation to be who others expect, are giving way to lines that are grown, cleaner, and far more courageous. Neither of them is walking for applause now. They are walking to feel the rightness of the step. 2026 doesn't rush at them as another loop on the same carousel, it unfolds as a road with fewer signs and more sky. The international leg of their plan, the travel, the shift in craft, will test this philosophy with patience and pressure. And here at Turkish Spotlight Secrets, we'll be with you as it unfolds, measuring not the glitz but the gain, not the noise but the note. Thank you for staying with us through this long, intimate chronicle of how silence became a lifeline and how a single call turned into a compass. If this story nudged you to consider where your own voice has been hiding, press like, share this with someone who needs a reminder that pauses are powerful, and subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive. One last invitation: if our work matters to you, if our devotion to craft and care deserves a vote of confidence, press join. That act keeps Turkish Spotlight Secrets strong, independent, and loyal to the difficult truths that make these lives so much more than spectacle. Until the next exclusive, we remain your companion through the shadows and the spotlights alike, always here, in the place where stories learn how to breathe again.